don't know. I don't know if the camera is having a hard time focusing or it's going in and out. So sorry if that keeps happening. Anyways, welcome everyone. Welcome to the last week of Island Box. In case you're wondering why it's so bright outside, I'm joining you from Korea, southern coast of Korea. So that's what it looks like. You may see my nibblings pop in at some point. They're running around in the back at some point. So yeah, don't mind the interruption, but this is what happens. Anyways, I don't have the bottle with me because I took my own advice. Instead of traveling with the entire bottle, I just put it in a little mason jar with the top. Yes, I drank some last night. So this is what I have. So I don't have the label, but it should be the last bottle you have, which is that blue bottle. But it's a LN Mattei Cap Corse Blanc Quinquina is what we're tasting today. All right, let's see. Where'd the chat box go? There you go. I don't really have any other announcement. The enrollment is already all wrapped up. That's all shipped out. Phil, I got your email. I sent back to you, but that is a UPS mistake. For some reason, Phil's wines got delivered to Ohio. I don't even know how that happened. So I'll sort that out. So yeah, I'll figure that out and let you know. But yeah, so everything is all done.
Someone did SOF.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They interrupted your packet. They're like, oh, this sounds delicious. But anyways, besides that, I don't really have an announcement. Next week, next month is going to be the Weirdo Pool Party box. So all the pool party wines, all the ones that we want to drink, bright, crisp, dry, but also something weird, like whether it be variety or the region or production method, something little outside the box. So what next month is all about. I will also be tasting that first week with you all from Korea. So expect to see a bright daylight behind me during the tasting. It is 9:30 here, 9:39 right now in Korea. So don't say I have never done anything for you. Just woke up like an hour ago. Here I am drinking some Quinquina. Beautiful. It's perfect weather for it, by the way. It's been raining. So raining season started last week, 2 weeks ago. So it's been raining all last 3 days. So it's actually really nice to have the sunlight, and the weather's been quite perfect right now. So great. Anyways, besides all of that, this is very fitting. This is the whole reason why I picked the organization this month is we're donating to Malaria Consortium this month. So if you want to donate Ellen Sachs Wine Club, the link is right there in the chat box. If not, that's cool too. Any questions about anything before we get into the wine? Cool.
Yes, wait, I have a question about, hi.
Yeah. What's up, Sara?
Does this keep a long time? Because I'm not sure I'll be able to drink a lot of it. Like, is this like a vermouth where it like keeps for like a couple of days?
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure. It'd be good.
Okay.
I would definitely cap it and then I'll put it in the fridge. So keep it in the fridge, but it should be fine.
For like a few days, not just like drink it by tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
I have a bunch of bottles open. So I'm worried about
honestly, a few days to
like a week.
honestly, like I keep vermouth just open in my fridge at all times, and then whenever I just want a vermouth, I go and pop in. They usually don't last longer than like at most 2 weeks. But yeah, okay. I've had it over 2 weeks. You may get a little oxidative edge, you may lose a little bit of freshness, but yeah, totally fine. Especially if you're mixing it into cocktails, totally good.
Okay, great. I have too many things open. Right.
No, all good. And also, if you're worried about it, you can do what I did, which is I don't have the bottle with me because I travel with Korea in a mason jar. So you can just pour it into a mason jar, fill it all the way to the top, put a little cap on it so there's a least amount of oxygen exposure, cap it in, and then put it in the fridge. It will last you very, very long time. So should be good.
I just want to be clear, though. You smuggled it in a mason jar to Korea?
That's right. You heard
me. Like a urine sample? Okay.
Correct. You heard me correctly.
I just want to be clear. I'm very proud.
Yeah. Not a blink of eye. I mean, given that it was a check-in baggage, but yeah. I have also next week's bottle in there, and I was like, I don't want to put 2 bottles in there. It's taking up too much space. And also, I don't know if you guys' bottle is doing this. Mine wasn't like completely like capping tightly. Like it kept passing and then loosening up. So I was afraid that it was going to spill. So anyways, yes, I brought a little urine sample of fucking Quinquina to Korea. Yes, Joe. Any other questions? Excellent. As you saw, I don't have the bottle with me, but it is the blue bottle, blue label with a screw top, white screw top. It's an LN Mattei Cap Corse Blanc Quinquina is what we're tasting today. All right, let's start with the map. Share. All right. Here's a map of France. Should look pretty familiar. We've seen this map many, many times. But where we are is in Corsica, which really doesn't show, but it is actually closer to Italy. I think it's actually closer to North Africa than actually coast of France, but it's the Mediterranean Ocean. I should probably picked up a better map to show all of that. But yeah, it's just above Sardinia. But we saw this map first week, so we were back in Corsica. Here's a map of Corsica, different winemaking regions, I should say. But where we are particularly is right here in the tip. This winery is based in Bastia, but this is where we are, the upper corner. This little finger, this little peninsula that juts out is called Cap Corse, hence the name Cap Corse Blanc. So that's where we are today, just in case you were wondering where it was. Named after its founder, Louis Napoleon Mattei. This is the oldest known aperitif in Corsica. I actually did not know that. I've known about this product for a long time. I love it personally. I love all this fortified aromatized wine. In case you're not familiar with what that term means, we'll get into that in a second. But this is the oldest known aperitif in Corsica, founded in 1872. So it's being made for a long, long time. Still family owned. Everything's done in the house. In 1872, Louis Napoleon named his aperitif after Cap Corse, which is that peninsula where he's from. But all of this really came about is because he took a voyage out to the Caribbean, and then he found that there were discovered this kind of beneficial properties, and we'll talk about medicinal properties of all this in a second, of cinchona tree bark, which is the chief bittering agent as well as a flavoring agent for this wine. And he brought it back to Cap Corse to blend it with local wine made from Muscat and Vermentino. We learned about that first week, right? Vermentino is the chief white grape variety of Corsica. And then he found some other spices and fruit that were moving through the Corsica's ports because it was a big, busy, bustling port for a lot of different trading ingredients. And then he mixed it with the wine, and hence Quinquina was born, or this Quinquina was born. So let's talk about all about that real quick. So really, we're talking about, right, again, this wine club, we talk so much about minimal intervention, trying to do as little as possible, but we're talking about wine that is actually quite interventionist, right? Kind of like sparkling wine. Like there's a lot of human touch that needs to happen for wine to become sparkling wine. And this is kind of the similar thing. There's a lot of different, it's more about process of winemaking, wine production method, less so about the actual place or the terroir, so to speak. And there's some of that left here as well, but we'll talk about that for a second. So let's start with exactly what this is, which is, this is a Quinquina. So what is Quinquina? Quinquina is a fortified aromatized wine with a chief flavoring agent being cinchona. So bunches of questions pop out right here, right? Like what is aromatized fortified wine? What is cinchona? Blah, blah, blah. So we'll get into that one by one. But just in case, if you think you've never had Quinquina, just chances are you've probably had Quinquina, especially if you're a cocktail drinker. You probably have had some Quinquina as a part of a mixing ingredient in a lot of cocktails. So here are some of the probably most well-known Quinquinas you might have seen. By the way, this is the Cap Corse, the LM Mattei's winery, or at least a part of his wineries. But anyways, so this is a cinchona root, but we'll get into that in a second, but let's start here. So here's one example. This is a particular brand, but you might have heard of Barolo Chinato, especially if you've gone to any latest hipster cocktail bars where they're making their own take on Manhattan. You've probably certainly have had Barolo Chinato. It's kind of had its heydays in the last 5 years or so. This is from Piedmont region of Italy. Just another example of Quinquina. Here's Bonal, which is also another example of Quinquina from Savoie in France. The chief ingredients are from here. This is the Alpine Quinquina. It comes from the Chartres mountain. I always love saying that. That's where the chartreuse comes from. Here's Burr. There's another one that you might have seen. Here you go, Grand Quinquina. It says right there on the label. This comes from Catalonia in Spain. Coqui Americano, you certainly probably have seen this. It's either in your wine shop. This is kind of very, very omnipresent. You can see it pretty much everywhere. This also comes from Piedmont. Probably, this is not a pure Quinquina because this also has another bittering agent called gentian, which is whole another kind of category of these kind of bitter aromatized wines. But this is also an example. This is personally my favorite. I should say my favorite. I've always been just a favorite label design of any bottle I've ever seen. I actually want to get just like a poster and hang up in my wall. Morinquina, which is a cherry flavored Quinquina from Auvergne, France, which is in the most eastern part of the Loire. So here's another one. But by the way, I've seen these in many, many bars, even in DC, all around the country. So these are pretty common Quinquinas. Here's another one, Lillet. You probably have seen Lillet. Even though this is not really a Quinquina now, but the original form of Lillet, which is called Quina Lillet, short for Quinquina, right? K-I-N-A, however. Quina Lillet from Bordeaux, France, is also a form of Quinquina. So it's when you think about it, you might be thinking of like, I've never had Quinquina before, but truth is, you probably have before. So let's get into it. What is Quinquina? So what is a fortified aromatized wine? What is cinchona? All of that. Let's start with what aromatized and fortified wine means. So we've featured a different fortified and aromatized wine, which is vermouth, which was years ago. What that means is what that means is that at one point, to arrest the fermentation, you pour brandy, oftentimes unaged brandy, but it can be any spirit, but oftentimes it's brandy because it's made from grapes and you don't want to age it because you don't want to add another flavoring agent. So you are essentially dumping spirit into wine. That's what fortification means. Why would you do that? So a couple of reasons. By the way, sherry, Madeira, port, these are all examples of fortified wines. Vermouth, Quinquina, gentian, these are all examples of fortified wines. So oftentimes what happens is as the wine ages or as wine ferments, right, the sugar is being converted into alcohol, the yeast is doing its thing. Oftentimes stylistically, if they want to arrest the sugar level, so they want to keep some of the natural sugar that's in the wine, they'll usually dump. There are two ways to do it. You can also filter it out so finely to such a small micron level that you can actually filter out yeast, so there's no more yeast left over that can eat sugar, so it stays kind of a little sweet. Or you can dump brandy into it, jacking up the alcohol level beyond the level where yeast can survive, so it arrests the fermentation, the sugar stays, as well as the wine also becomes more, it lasts longer just because it's higher in alcohol. It can fight other bacteria and enzyme that enters more easily. So that's one of the biggest reasons why you fortify wine. But so all the sugar that you feel here in this wine is all natural sugar from grapes. There's no sugar being added here, none of that. It just naturally stopped from just adding fermentation, getting it beyond. It's usually anything beyond 16.5. The yeast can't survive unless you're using some lab-grown yeast that can go higher than that. But naturally speaking, 16.5, most yeast cannot survive beyond that. So you're basically essentially pouring brandy into a fermenting wine to jack up the alcohol level beyond that to kind of stop fermentation from happening. Now, what does aromatized mean? All that means is essentially there's a flavoring agent that's added to the wine. It oftentimes happens during the fortification process. So imagine you make the base wine, in this case is Muscat and Fermentino. You're making wine just as any other time, right? You get the grapes in, you crush it, or you label the whole berry, whole stem. You're letting it ferment. At some point, when it gets to the kind of right level of sugar, the winemaker will dump a unaged brandy in there, jacking up the alcohol level, stops the fermentation, and at that point, they will add all these different botanicals. And botanicals, all that really means in the world of wine and flavoring is just anything but grapes, essentially, the fruit itself. So flowers, tree roots, tree barks, herbs, plant matters, anything that you can add is basically essentially a botanical. So whenever you hear the term botanicals, it doesn't necessarily mean one thing. It's just like anything else that you add besides the grapes themselves is essentially botanical. So in this case, the chief agent that you're being added here is cinchona. So what is a cinchona? It's a family of trees and shrubs that were originally discovered by the Quechua people in the Andes forests of South America. And Quechua people are the indigenous people that lived in kind of Peru, Bolivia, that area of South America. And here's why the hell do you know that factoid, which is a national tree of Peru is a cinchona tree, in case you never ever wondered. The Quechua used to use it as a kind of a muscle relaxant. They use it as, they found that it was effective kind of a way to treat a lot of these kind of shivering symptoms that people would have to kind of relax them out. And then what they used to do is they would found this cinchona tree bark. It's of the tree they're essentially using. Actually, I have a picture of the cinchona tree, which is right here. So it's like a flowering tree like this, but really what you're interested in is the bark. So they used to ground up this bark, and then they used to mix it with a sweetened water to kind of offset its bitterness. This tree bark is quite bitter. I've actually made my own vermouth in the past when I was running a bar program, and I've used some, or I guess I should say I just made my own Quinquina. You can also do that at home. You can take any base wine, and then you can add, in this case, you would have to add sugar, but add some unaged brandy and then throw, it doesn't even have to be brandy. You can even use vodka if you want, or any other thing, gin if you want. And then you can add all these different agents to kind of aromatize it. In this case, it's cinchona and quinquina. Anyway, so they used to mix this ground cinchona tree bark and then mix it with the sweetened water to kind of offset, to balance out the bitterness of this bark. And essentially what they produce is tonic water, right? And then the Jesuit missionaries came in the early 1600s, discovered Quechua people using this as a medicine. They brought it back to Rome, where it came, and I learned this for the first time here. I always thought quinquina and all this, quinine, all this was used to treat malaria for the sailors. I mean, which it was, but really when it was first started used, or at least recorded to be used after the Quechua people to treat malaria, was in the Roman times. So they brought it back to the Rome in the 1600s. Apparently the malaria was endemic to the swamps and marshes surrounding the city of Rome, and responsible for deaths of several popes, many cardinals, and countless Roman citizens. So they started using this to treat malaria. But then later it was discovered that cinchona bark contains quinine, which was isolated and named in 1820 by the French researchers, named after the original Quechua word for cinchona tree bark, which was quina, or quina, which means bark of bark or holy bark. So this name, this whole quinine, quinquina, all this really comes back to the Quechua people's language, which meant quina, which meant the bark. Another factoid, quote unquote, useless unless you are at a, most likely useless unless you're some sort of like a booze trivia, is that you've ever seen that brand Fever Tree? It's my favorite brand of a tonic water. They also make excellent ginger beer, which is my actually go-to hangover beverage, the Fever Tree ginger beer. But anyways, that Fever Tree brand that you find it everywhere these days in Whole Foods and different grocery stores, that cinchona trees are known as fever trees because a quinine is known to resist malaria, cure people, of reducing fever. So there you go, another useless factoid that you learned on 6 Foot Wine Club, and that's why we're donating to also Malaria Consortium this month, because all of that. So that's what we got. By the way, this is another chief ingredient in this particular quinquina. By the way, you can use any other things to aromatize the wine, but in this case, with Cap Corse Blanc, they use this local citrus called cedrat, C-E-D-R-A-T, or the citron. If you ever had any kind of like a French fragrance, this is actually chief fragrant ingredient in a lot of perfumes and colognes. It's really the skin is what you're after. As you can see, there's not much fruit in there, but the skin is the most kind of a fragrant part of all. It's kind of like yuzu. You don't use the fruit of yuzu all that much. You use it really for the skin, but it's the same thing here. So yeah, this is what this and the cinchona tree, the bark of the tree is essentially the chief ingredients, and there's some other spices and different things that are added here, which are not all listed. I couldn't find exactly what's in there, but that's essentially what you have here. By the way, oftentimes when you talk about particularly French Quinquina or French aromatized wine, even with vermouth, you're going to hear this term Mistelle, M-I-S-T-E-L-L-E. What that Mistelle refers to is its categorical a category of just fortified wine. So the Mistelle base of this wine is Vermentino and Muscat. Then you add cinchona bark, as well as the cedrat with a bunch of other spices during the fortification process is essentially what this is. That's what Quinquina is. The difference you may ask, well, then what is the difference between vermouth and a Quinquina? It's really what it comes down to is the bittering agent. All these different fortified wines, particularly that has bitter component to it, it all depends on what the chief bittering agent is. So in case of vermouth, it's flavored and bittered with wormwood. That's the chief ingredient also in absinthe, right? That gives a little cycle. They say Van Gogh drank so much vermouth that he went crazy, became psychedelic, and cut off his ear and all of that. But so wormwood is a chief bittering and a flavoring agent of vermouth. So whole idea, at least the story goes, wormwood was first discovered by German researchers or German explorers. So like, how W sounds like a V. So wormwood, vermouth is kind of like how it became, is at least a story I've heard. And then Quinquina is a cinchona, so it's bittered and a flavor with a cinchona bark. And then there's another whole category called gentian, which is another kind of plant, family of plant that is a bitter. So the gentians are flavored and bittered with gentian plant. So that's the only difference. But in terms of actual production method, the fortification, aromatization, all of that is the same across the board. So anytime you hear vermouth, Quinquina, gentian, just know that it's essentially the same kind of category. It all depends on what the bittering agent, chief bittering agent in that thing is. All right, I think that's all I got for you today. Any questions about any of that I just went over? Cool. Now that you've seen that, pictures list of Quinquina that I mentioned, has anybody not ever had Quinquina here before? See, there you go. Perfect. All right. Let's taste the wine. So obviously, we're tasting a fortified wine using a different grid. In case WC has a slightly different grid for fortification, but for all intents and purposes, for kind of what we're doing, I think we're fine using that because there's a lot of similar things like sugar level, alcohol level. We're going to talk about that. So yeah, we'll use that, but know that it's not going to completely 100% translate to tasting a fortified / aromatized wine. But tasting is tasting. So we'll get to it. All right. Who wants to take the appearance? Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, Quinquina and vermouth it can be white, it can be red, it can be rosé. There's many different colors all along the spectrum. In fact, Mattei also makes red Quinquina based out of their still based red wine they use. So yeah. Who wants to take the appearance?
We'll do it.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Chris.
We'll do it as a group. All right, I'm going to put on the camera. Hold on. We just poured some in a glass because we've been drinking it as a cocktail, as you suggested.
Great.
What are we doing?
The appearance.
Yeah.
Okay.
More light.
It's
clear.
It's clear.
It's clear. Yeah, for sure.
This glass is not clear. The glass is not.
what's like a medium pale?
I think it's medium. Yeah.
Medium?
Yeah,
Definitely.
I'll call this about medium. Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's got some color, not super.
Yeah.
Lemon?
How about the color?
Sweet. What are you doing, bud?
I mean, I think it's like gold, but
Yeah,
Mm.
agreed. I do think
it
there's some.
almost has a little like
Oh yeah, it's really
Like
gold in the light.
gold, but like almost on the like amber, getting into amber. I
Yeah.
think a little bit of
Okay.
like
I
that
agree. I
that
agree.
browny orange kind of to it. It could be our lighting, but
I agree with you.
Yeah, I think it's I'll call this a gold, which is totally fine. Yeah, I don't necessarily see like an amber color kicking in on mine yet, but if you leave this out, it continues to get exposed to oxygen, it will definitely turn more amber for sure. Any other observations?
nope.
Yeah,
Great.
no sediment. It's pretty clear. All good.
No sediment.
Yep.
Those set
Yeah, no bubbles. Excellent. You got to pick the next person for the notes.
Does anybody want to volunteer?
I will.
17.
All right,
Okay.
Cecilia.
awesome.
I love fortified wine.
Yeah. No, me too. I know it's going out of fashion, but I'm a big fan of fortified wines. Yeah.
It smells
Right.
clean.
It's clean, sound, intensity.
I don't have a good glass for this because I ran out of wine glasses, but
Yeah. I'm also drinking out of one of these.
is it like medium minus? I just have a weird glass. but,
Yeah.
Like my
I don't know,
nose is my nose is getting in here.
Even here, like I get it like right at the rim, like as my nose is approaching the rim. So I'll call it a medium. What do you get? So again, this is not exactly as wine. There's gonna be a lot of different things, probably not on this sheet. So call out whatever you can, but categorically just kind of go down. Is there any floral? But that's simple. Yeah.
So yeah, I got some floral like honeysuckle. I feel like
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I get a little bit of, yeah, I think that's excellent call.
chamomile maybe.
Yep, honeysuckle, chamomile, I think that's
Even
for sure.
elderflower. Yeah, I don't know.
Yep.
It reminds me of
For sure,
Yeah.
for sure. Green fruit,
maybe a little pear, but I don't get like a ton of green fruit.
yeah, me neither. Any citrus?
Like a little bit of lemon, but it's really light.
Yeah, definitely get some lemon here. Particularly like the pithy part, like the white part of lemon.
Yeah.
Not like super full flavor, but like a citrusy, kind of a pithy, kind of a citrus fruit, for sure. Any stone fruit?
I don't know if maybe it's the color, but like I feel like I'm getting a little apricot maybe.
Yeah, okay. I can kind of see that. I don't get a whole lot of stone fruit, but I can kind of see the apricot.
A little bit.
Yeah. Tropical.
I don't think so.
Yeah, me neither. Any red fruit, black fruit?
Nope.
I don't get it either. And then also, if you're to do this with a red Quinquina, you'll probably pick up some of that red fruit and black fruit as well. Because again, we're using base white wine, which doesn't have a lot of red and black fruit. Nature of the fruit. Do you get anything else here?
I wouldn't say it's fresh.
Yeah, like to me, I mean, I do get some fresh fruit here as well, but like I get, like to me, this comes to me quite a bit, like sultana. Like
I don't know if I know what that smells like.
It's like a golden raisins.
Ah.
Yeah, these British people with their sultanas.
Like a
but
Madeira, like what I smell in Madeira, I guess.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
exactly. There's some like a little bit like a raisin kind of a thing here, but yeah, like the fresh pith, the citrus to me is quite fresh, but there's also some of these kind of like the raisin, a little bit like dried out fruit here as well, some cooked fruit here as well. But overall, pretty fresh though. I wouldn't say this is like completely cooked or jammy.
Jammy, no.
Any herbaceous herbal?
I don't, but I usually have trouble smelling that.
Yeah. So I get ton of herbaceous herbal, but it's not necessarily these kind of things that they're talking about. Like it's like, man, it's kind of going back to this kind of medicinal thing with almost all of these aromatized wines, right? Like so Madeira, port, sherry, those are fortified, but they're not aromatized, right? Like there's no other ingredient that's being added to the base wine except for the brandy.
What is a medicinal smell?
So yeah, like to me, medicinal, like where it takes me as a child, like going to a Eastern medicine shop where they had like fucking all these trees, barks, roots, you know, deer antlers, dried up mushrooms, and like all these different things that you mix to like make this cocktail of medicine. To me, like that, this reminds me of like my childhood going into those like Eastern Chinese medicine kind of stores. If you ever go to Chinatown and go to these like herbal medicine shop, like there's like very distinctive smell, and there's some of that here. Like there's some of that kind of tree bark, tree root, and obviously we know that there's cinchonas in here, like a tree bark.
It reminds me of like tonic water, though, too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
yeah,
same thing, same chief flavoring ingredient as a tonic water.
gotcha.
If you're familiar with any Amaro or any like Fernet, things like that, there's a lot of like kind of medicinal things. I mean, like mind you, these things, particularly like aromatized wine, fortified aromatized wines, they were initially developed or initially used as a medicine. It's a way to kind of preserve the medicinal qualities of different plants and different things. So it wasn't necessarily really even about flavors or like a joy of drinking. It was more of just like it was a drug essentially. So there's a lot of these kind of like tree root bark and a lot of the things going on here for sure. Do you get any spice, any minerality, anything like that?
I do not.
So here's the thing. I get some minerality on this thing, like, which is not always the case, especially with these like highly, not highly, but like definitely intervened manipulated product, right? Like we're adding stuff, like, you know, changing the product, flavoring agent, and all of that. People don't take a lot of effort in making a really solid base wine because you are adding all the stuff, you're manipulating the flavors, you can change all those things. But with this one, I can tell that they took care of to actually make a good base wine to begin with, because like there's certain minerality here which you don't always get with, or you don't even think to even pay attention to. But particularly when we even get to the palate, I got it. When I tasted this, I was like, holy shit! Like I actually get some like a minerality out of this wine, which is fun. But yeah, I guess I get like a very like I don't know, it's like a whetstone, limestoney, that kind of that route is kind of like what I'm feeling on this thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah, a lot of this kind of medicinal herbal, non-identifiable, kind of like herbaceous herbal thing, tree roots, barks, and things like that. But your idea of just like not all fruit is fresh, but a lot of that kind of citrus and then floral component with there's some like tea component here for me here as well. Like those non-fermented kind of like a white tea, kind of like that category of teas in here as well for me, which is fine. Any secondary, any tertiary?
I don't think so.
Yeah, no, I don't get most of any of this. There are some aromatized
Maybe
wine.
maybe a little honey. I don't like, or
Okay,
this smells a
Yeah.
little sweet, but yeah.
I can see that. Yeah, for sure. There are some wines, especially the base wines, and then even afterwards, after fortification and aromatization, they will age the wine in a little bit of barrels. Often, it's rarely ever new barrel. I've never had aromatized wines in new barrels, but they age it a little bit in neutral barrels. So sometimes you can get some of these kind of a barrel influence on your aromatized wines, but oftentimes, no. Oftentimes it's not. That's not what they do. Definitely no tertiary here. These are rarely ever meant to be aged for a long time. These are just meant to be kind of consumed as it's produced. So, cool. Good job. I know this is kind of a unusual thing to taste through, smell through.
It
so
is.
Good job. Yeah. You get to pick the next person for the palate.
Does anybody want to volunteer?
I will.
Sweet.
Excellent. Excellent, Sara.
Hi. Okay.
I love how
So
you're
this-
like, I don't have to drink all of this tonight, right? Wait until we get to the booze part.
All right, let's start with the sweet up top.
I mean, it's still dry. It still tastes a little sweet, but like I don't think that it's still within the category. I mean, I don't know for fortified wine actually.
Yeah, so this is where it gets a little bit different. So in a fortified wine category, essentially what changes is the more than anything this part, the alcohol. Because within fortified world, this is a lower end of fortification. Some fortification goes all the way up to like beyond 20%, 22. Where just to kind of give you I'm just going to reveal it now, but this one is 17 and a half. So it's a much lower end of fortification. But, obviously, if we're drinking still wine, if we drink anything 17 and a half, first of all, we would never be able to drink, 17 and a half still dry wine unless it was manipulated and somebody added sugar and, alcohol, whatever. That you would never, like the yeast doesn't survive to 17 and a half, so you'll never see that. It would definitely off the scale high, but in the 4 to 5 world, this is actually low. So this is where the grid would change for fortified wines, but for all intents and purposes, it's fine. So sweetness, think about it, and I think you made an excellent observation here, which I'll talk about in a second. But so you were saying it still comes off quite dry, even though you're assessing some sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you were to compare this to like cabinet level Riesling that you've had over there, which is usually like it could be anywhere between 9 to like 15 grams of sugar. Does that seem about right? Do you feel like the sugar is actually higher than that, or
Like higher than a Riesling? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So I mean, Riesling can go all the way up to very very sweet, but to me, this is actually going off more than off dry. Like if I were to really pay attention just to sugar without paying attention to the acid and the bitter here. By the way, acid and bitter are both balancing components to sugar. So perceptively, we may be seeing this as not as sweet, but if we were to actually do a lab data on this, I'm willing to bet this is probably closer to like 20 grams, somewhere probably in the like 18 to 20 grams is about what I would say. Again, in the world of fortified wines, that's not exactly super high in sugar. It's also lower end. But especially with, I'm giving a hint on the acid level on this thing as well then, acid level and the bitterness here, perceptively speaking, this sugar seems very, very in balance, which makes us think that like it comes off exactly as like the off dry. Even though if I were to actually look at the sugar level, this is probably getting closer to medium dry, probably around 20 and beyond is what I would say. So excellent observation, Sara. Acidity.
So I guess because what we just said, it does taste so balanced. It's got to be probably closer to medium.
Mm-hmm.
Medium plus.
Yeah. If you sit there, move it around.
Yeah.
Try not to pay attention to sugar and the sweetness that's moving on. Just like try to really focus on just the sensation of that acid, like how much it pulls, how much your mouth waters, and all of that. It's there, like, and honestly, that's what makes it delicious. Like all that sugar, but like all that acid, right? And then there's a bittering agent. So, yeah, this is. I mean, it's not screaming, but I would definitely call this medium plus, lower end of medium plus is what I call this. Any tannin?
No.
No, I don't get it either. If there is there's a possibility sometimes you can get some tannin, especially depending on how much of a cinchona root, how much different like a tree bark and root, those kind of things were used. Those things can leak some phenolics into it. But in this case, it's not much. So yeah, I don't get much tannin here at all. Alcohol? We talked about for a second.
The fortified.
Oh, yeah, here it says fortified, low, medium, high.
Yeah. And you said it was 17. So which is I guess fortified low.
Yeah, so in a fortified wine world, this is quite low. 17 and a half is quite low. I would say low is like 17 and a half to like 18 and a half, 18 and a half to like 20s, medium. High is essentially like, I don't know, 21 and above is essentially what we're talking about in terms of fortified wine world. So yeah, low in the fortified wine world. Body.
Medium.
I'm gonna go with like medium plus here. Yeah, I mean, with 17.5% alcohol, with this much sugar, like we're saying, I'm calling it, guessing at like 20 grams per liter. There's no
Mhm.
way you're gonna have light-bodied wine, right? Like all the sugars and viscous, alcohol fills you up, glycol. So I'm gonna call this a medium plus body. Musu, obviously, we don't have to talk about. Flavor intensity.
Medium plus.
Yeah, exactly. It's not shy, right? Like this is bold.
Yeah.
And do you confirm everything that Cecilia called out? Is there anything else that sticks out for you?
I did get more stone fruit, maybe.
Yep.
Because I did also smell the apricot on the nose, and I think I get a little bit more of that
Okay.
on the taste too, on the mouth too, than
Okay.
we smelled. But otherwise, totally the same.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I really like Cecilia's like the honeysuckle chamomile call on this thing. Like there's definitely some of that, some tea component. I still don't get a whole lot of stone fruit personally for me, but like on the palate, even more so on the nose, I do get quite a bit of citrus here. That kind of like citrus, pithy, lemon. That bitterness reminds me, and I know a lot of it cinchona also reminds me of like a bitter lemon, like a bitter outside, like the pithy kind of a thing going on here.
Yeah.
So definitely that. But yeah, some of this kind of herbaceous herbal thing, like these things always take me to like my childhood going to these like Chinese herbal shops. And this is gonna sound maybe crazy, but I really have to sit there and kind of really think about it. But despite it having this sugar, if you really sit there and try to think about it or try to pay attention to it, I get a little bit of salinity on this wine. There's a little bit of that like a salty, sweet thing going on. It's not just sugar. Again, this goes back to another that kind of like the minerality thing we're talking about. Where this wine comes from, the northeastern part, this is where exactly like limestone is rich, all of that in Corsica. So it makes sense and the soil is quite poor. So it makes sense why this wine would have a lot of minerality going on, at least the base wine. But oftentimes those things get masked by a lot of other things that are being added on top. But if you kind of sit there and really like try to pay attention, I really would love to taste just the base wine of this before the brandy gets added. But yeah, I have a feeling that's going to be quite good because I get minerality, I get some of that like briny thing going on. Again, it could be the power suggestion knowing that this comes from an island in the middle of the Mediterranean. But yeah, overall,
I was gonna say for me, there's like really this drying sensation in my mouth that I don't know if it's necessarily just the acidity, but like it's not tannin either. Like it dries my mouth out in a pleasant way.
Yeah.
And maybe it's the salinity thing you're saying,
Yeah, maybe salinity. Maybe it's just like some of those like a tree root bark kind of thing. If you guys ever get a chance to, by the way, to like chew on like a cinchona root bark, you should try it because it's wild how bitter that shit is. It's crazy. But overall, I think to all the calls that you made, Cecilia, and then Sara, you pointing out some of the stone fruit and different things. I think it's right on. I mean, it's exactly what this wine is supposed to be. I taste all of that. Definitely no secondary, tertiary. Did you get any secondary, tertiary, anything else? Yeah.
No.
I guess some of that like a salty kind of a West Stony kind of a thing going on here as well. But cool. Finally, the length.
Yeah, medium.
Yeah.
Medium plus.
I think this is like a borderline long. Like to me, what's striking about this wine is the length. Like how much. I mean, sure, like a lot of that is like a bitterness at the end that kind of balances out the rest. But still, like all the other kind of flavoring component sticks around. Like I'm still getting some citrus. I'm still getting some like the herbaceous thing. So yeah, medium plus to long is what I would call this palate. And oftentimes, and this is part of what I like about fortified wines is that it's hard to find fortified wines with a short length. It's just something about the adding of a brandy. It just kind of like makes the flavor just stick around longer. I don't know what the chemical reaction is that happens, but I often find fortified wines to have, in general, longer length than still dry wines. So, cool. Bring it home for us. How good is this wine? Would you age?
Yes, I would age it.
Yeah?
Yeah, because it's fortified, right? Like I think those things can be aged longer.
It will last longer, but I don't know if necessarily
Age longer. Because because the alcohol like froze everything in place, it doesn't well, I guess that doesn't matter. Okay, I don't know.
Yeah, so in general, these things are kind of meant to be they're not meant for like the adding more complexity as it gets older, right? Like to me, what's delicious about this wine is all the kind of freshness of the kind of like citrus, flower, all of that in combination with like the really savory non-fruit things, right? Like the tree bark, the medicinal quality, herbaceous quality, herbal quality, and like all those things. And as this ages, all you're gonna get is that you're gonna lose all that freshness, and you're just gonna add more and more onto that like savory part. So this is gonna just become really like just medicine, not really like not having any like freshness, the tasty part of it.
That's
So,
kind of cool though. Like I like it tomorrow, you know. I like
yeah, it's true. Yeah, if you do
more
age it,
syrupy. What if it gets more syrupy?
100%, for sure. And this ages, it will oxidize, and you'll get some of that like nutty edge too, which could be fun actually. As somebody who also likes oxidated wines, but in general, these are like not meant to be for age. So I would say it won't go bad. Like I think we'll hold on to this flavor quite a while. I would say like 3 years.
Right, but there's no intention to age. Yeah,
exactly. It's not meant to be aged for a long time.
Yeah.
Now, quality level.
I thought it was very balanced. It wasn't that complex flavor. Well, I don't know.
I don't know. I think it's pretty complex.
The herbal stuff too.
Yeah.
I call it very good.
Yeah, exactly. I would say complexity is not like super complex, right? It's like either tertiary, it's not meant to be, but does have some herbal power. Yeah, it's got a bunch of stuff going on. So I would say solidly medium, high end of medium. Length, we call it medium plus to long. Concentration, we call it medium plus. So all around, yeah, I'll call this very good.
Yeah.
And drink it over the next 2 to 3 years. So you have no problem. But if you want to get weird, like me and Sara, and then see what an oxidative fortified wine tastes like, then age it longer. Excellent. Good job. I know this was it's a very unusual wine to taste, and we haven't tasted it in a while. So good job, everyone.
It was tough. Shannon, I asked the exact same question before I opened it. Yes, you can keep it open for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Keep it in the fridge, obviously, but yeah, this will last longer than regular, normal still wine for sure. Any questions about anything I just went over?
I just had an observation. I love that the bottle, and you don't have it, but you can lay it flat. You can actually read raised relief what the wine is. It says Quinquina.
Oh yeah.
Cap Corse. So I guess when it's laying in your fridge, you can read it sideways.
Ah, cool.
Pretty clever.
Yeah. Dig it.
Did anyone else have trouble like unscrewing it? I tried to unscrew it and the whole sleeve just came off the top.
Oh.
And then I unscrewed it from the sleeve and put it back on.
All right. Well,
it tastes good. It tastes good though.
Yeah. So this was an interesting part. So when I got the delivery of this wine, all the cases, everything was fine, except for one bottle in one of the cases was completely missing the cap. And I was like, I mean, it happens. Like I've gotten a delivery where like an entire full case was missing all the corks and all the caps, like the aluminum foil caps. It was just like empty. It's like as if like it just missed the bottling line, like that process of bottling line. It just got packed. But like with the still wines, those things were just completely oxidized by the time I got it. It's like, but this one, I tasted it and it was still fine, to give you an idea of why these things last for a while. So yeah, it was shipped from Corsica to DC into the warehouse to my warehouse with no cap on it, and it was still fine. So, to give you an idea of a longevity, indestructibility of a lot of fortified wines.
I think mine was the one right before that one.
Yeah, exactly. Or after. Any questions? Any other questions? Did you guys like this, by the way? Just out of curiosity. Did anybody not care for it? Good. I think we as Americans should consume more vermouth and more Quinquina, just more fortified wine in general. I think there's a lot of misconception about what this is, and I mean, I don't blame them for, you know, for most bars, majority of bars, right? Like vermouth is that bottle that's been like sitting back there for fucking like 5 years, right? Like completely oxidized at this point. If you ever order a martini in some shitty bar, like they finally like dust off that, like, you know, that bottle of vermouth that's been sitting on the unfridged, you know, sitting on that room temperature in the back, and they put some in their vermouth and it tastes like ass because, you know, it's 5-year-old completely oxidized wine. But in general, vermouth, as I've turned many of you onto vermouths, you know, vermouths and Quinquina, these aromatized fortified wines are delicious. So drink more of it. And they last longer. All right.
I have actually a random question. It's about shipping, which just or your comment about shipping made me think of, which is in the summer, like when it's so hot, and I'm just thinking about this because I keep getting notices like there's these gummy vitamins I have that they're like Amazon told me they're not going to ship anymore, and you know, the tinned fish place that I ordered tinned fish from, they're not shipping like anchovies anymore, and so like how does like shipping wine in the summer work? Because won't it bake?
It shouldn't. You shouldn't.
You shouldn't ship wine in the summer? Okay, so then like as a person who's like buying wine, like is the wine that like are you just like relying on what's already been imported and on US soil at this point? You know what I mean? Like what is it? How do you
Oh, you mean like coming from Europe to here?
Yeah, coming from Europe, yeah.
Okay. So in those cases, oftentimes, and this is Kermit Lynch who actually pioneered this idea, and it's interesting to think about that. It was a pioneer that people didn't think of this. Like it was as if it was like such a novel, difficult like engineering feat that it was, which is to ship wines in a refrigerated, temperature-controlled containers. Because like all these importers started realizing is like, oh shit, the wine we tasted in Europe doesn't taste the same when it lands in America. Like, why is that? Like as if that is like, I don't know, maybe back then it was like such a novel idea, like holy shit, temperature, like wine can get cooked. But so Kermit Lynch decided that's like, it must be the temperature. So he started shipping everything, even though you have to pay more. It's like all the wines have to be shipped in a temperature control. So now the companies, the import companies that do logistics for this thing, they actually install a thermometer inside a container, ship in on random different locations, and they report maximum temperature, lower temperature with the actual proof, like a certificate of proof that the temperature never reached out of like the range that it was supposed to be when it was delivered.
And is that just a standard of practice now for wines?
Become pretty standard now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So as far as import international trucking or international shipping and all of that, like I'm less worried about that part now. I am more worried about like within domestic internal shipping, right? Like when it's being shipped from like West Coast to East Coast. Even then with a wine, like bigger wine companies, they usually take reputable ones. They take pretty good care of doing that in a, again, temperature control container. But things like FedEx, UPS, like they don't give a shit. They're not shipping that in a temperature control, you know, truck. It's not sitting in a temperature control warehouse, you know.
The last mile, they're just they don't give a shit.
Yeah, they don't.
I will say, I've never had an issue with my wine from you, and I'm going on like 3 years now. I have noticed like especially in August and September here in California, it is like 100 degrees. So when I do get those shipments, the bottles, I'll like pull them out of the box and they're actually like hot. But I haven't noticed, I mean, maybe mine's, I don't know, maybe I'm just not noticing, but I haven't noticed anything like horrible about them. So
and given also these things, like ideally, you don't even want to expose it to like even short amount of time to a high temperature like that. But that's less destructive as opposed to like weeks, months, where like these wines are on the water and just cooking for like weeks and months at the end. Like that will completely cook the wine. So yes, ideally, Shannon, I would love to. Like I thought about this at the beginning of the wine club. I was like, maybe I make this like a quarterly wine club, where so I don't have to ship out wines every month. So it's like, you sign up for like 6 months at a time. So I ship out wines only in the springtime and the fall, not in the winter. And this also goes the other way too. It can get too cold where like the wine freezes and stuff. I once shipped a case of wine to my sister's place in Minnesota while I was visiting, and all the still ones were actually fine, but the lower ABV, like 5% cider, was frozen by the time.
Oh, cool.
So that can also happen on the other side. So you ideally don't want to ship wines in the heat of the summer, heat of the winter, but just the way I set up my wine club, I can ship it out every month. So, but hopefully it's a very short amount of time. I guess exposed to. Any other questions?
Yeah, just to say, we made the lemon spritz that you recommended with the instead of Aperol. It was delicious.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be the rest of the bottle.
Yeah, I had to literally pry this jar away from my sister yesterday because she's like, I want another one. I'm like, I need some for tomorrow. Stop drinking it. So, and we're drinking exactly like that with the soda water and lemon. Any other questions? In case you missed this, I said this at the beginning, but this is kind of like my own thing. I actually love Quinquina, where it's kind of like a bitter aromatized wines with a little bit like a dry cider instead of like a sparkling water. There was like a little dry cider on top. Delicious. All right. Let's play everybody's favorite game. How much do you think this is on a retail shelf? How much would you pay for it? Happy paying for it on a retail shelf? Think about it. I mean, higher the alcohol, usually alcohol is a price, right, in terms of pricing strategy. But these are not also meant to be like super aged. It's kind of like indestructible, more shelf stable than regular wine. Yeah. 24, 28, 24, 22, 22, 28, 32. All right, Cecilia. 26, 38. Damn, 35. All right. All right. Well, this on a retail shelf would be $25. So I don't know, something that lasts 2 to 3 years, 2 weeks open easily, right? Delicious on its own, but delicious mixed with other things for $25. I think it's a steal. There are vermouths and other aromatized ones that are way more expensive than this. For $25 for this quality, I think is an excellent deal. It's a steal, I think. So, anyways, cool.
Sorry, I missed. I know we talked about how long this can last, but I sort of missed that. And there's a lot. It's chaos in this house today. Did you say only 2 to 3 weeks? Like I can't keep this in the fridge like I do with vermouth and.
I mean, I do. I mean, I will keep this in the fridge. I have a bottle of vermouth that's open. My vermouth doesn't last more than 2 weeks, but I've had vermouth that's lasted like I put it in the fridge and left it in there for like months, like 1 or 2 months.
Okay.
And it's totally fine. You may get a little oxidative edge at the end, but it's fine. It's not going to be as.
It says keeps 2 to 3 weeks on the back of the bottle.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
If you're making cocktails with it, you probably wouldn't notice, though.
100%, way less so.
Yeah,
way less so. Especially if you keep it in the fridge, it will last way longer than 2 to 3 weeks, like freshness. You may also lose a little bit of like the expressiveness, but overall, I wouldn't worry about it. Is anybody drinking this neat, just like straight out of the bottle? Or are you guys all drinking it as a...
I was drinking it neat, and then I started mixing it with a bubbly.
Yeah.
I mixed it with seltzer.
Yeah.
First, and now I'm drinking it neat. I do like it neat though.
Yeah. I think it's actually excellent. Mine is almost at room temperature at this point. It's actually...
Mine too. Yeah.
That's a little bold. I've been throwing ice cubes into my neat.
I mean, I would prefer to drink it cold, but honestly, even at room temperature, it's 12 pounds.
Yeah, it's good.
I was thinking, like, is this the thing that they, you know how they're like white Negronis are now a thing? Is
It
this
reminds
the one
it
that they're
reminds me of
using?
that.
I don't know. I don't think I've paid attention, but like
Yeah.
it gives enough bitter that it sort of covers that like the Campari bitterness.
100%.
And then with the
So
gin,
this-
as you
this
were
would-
saying, but I was like, oh
this
my
would
God,
have-
that would be really good with mezcal.
Yeah, this would
maybe
replace the
also.
vermouth portion.
But then what's the vermouth? Like what would you do as the third spirit there?
So this would replace the vermouth portion. So I would do gin, right? This as the vermouth. And then there's the really bitter spirit portion.
Another white bitter.
I used to use Sailors or Salaire, Salers. It's a common brand that you can find in a lot of liquor store or good liquor stores. That's really bitter, like Campari. So I would use a Sailor or Salaire, or what's the other one that is yellower, so it's not completely clear, but I'm forgetting the name of. There's another spirit that is much bitter, that category spirit. So I would use that. So equal of those three things. But yeah, this will make an excellent.
That would be really bitter. I mean, because the vermouth is so sweet with the. Okay.
Yeah. Salaire is quite bitter, just so you know. I mean, Campari is quite bitter. If you ever taste Campari on its own, it's quite bitter.
Yeah, I don't taste the bitterness though. I think something's the matter with my palate.
Yeah, you don't get any bitterness.
I don't know. I love IPAs. I love all sorts of like all this.
Yeah.
And I don't mind it.
I mean, as somebody who also likes bitter, yeah, I know some people are very sensitive to bitter, and you may even find this too bitter, which is totally understandable. But yeah, but with sugar, like I feel like you need that bitter, you need that acid to like balance it all out. Otherwise, it would just feel weird.
I mean, I get straight up wood, like whatever, like that's the flavor that I get.
Yeah, totally.
Wood and
roots. Yeah, like bark and roots. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, very interesting.
Delicious. Any other questions? I'm surprised Ida hasn't made an entrance. But
maybe your sister said that they'll get a present if they don't bother Uncle Un.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, also we have to check out at 11, so you guys have me for 20 more minutes and that's it. So ask your questions. Anything you want?
I have a question about rosé.
Rosé?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Nothing to do with this. I've been catching up. I feel like I've not drank any of the wine from this club this year. So I've been watching, I just finished watching all the rosé videos.
Yeah.
What is the difference between direct press and making a Blanc de Noir? Like a still Blanc de Noir?
Yeah. None. I mean, it all depends on really, it's exactly the same thing.
Okay.
The color really comes from, if it's a direct press rosé, it's the amount of pressure you apply during press.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're doing Blanc de Noir and you want it to be like really clean and clear, then you will do much gentler press, and then you just take the earlier portion, the middle portion, and you just black that off.
Okay.
But the rosés, you basically press it all the way till, because once you get up to a certain point where the skin is getting a little more crushed, that you start to bleed out a little more color, and then once you get enough of that, they cut off, and then you get the color. But to your question, it's exactly the same.
Okay. Yeah. And then, so technically, you could have a maceration style rosé where the skins have been on there, and you can have a direct press, and depending on the amount of pressure, the direct press could technically be darker.
Correct. Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. And there are direct press rosés do have darker color, but oftentimes, obviously I haven't like tasted the pressure at 10 psi difference along the way. At what point it starts extracting so much like phenolics that it becomes like, oh my God, like this is not very good. Or maceration of, the maceration time, like, differentiated by like, a couple hours, every few hours or whatnot. And then where that crossover happens, if that makes sense, right? Like but everybody considers maceration method as the more prestigious way of making rosé, because like it extracts better flavor. There's some textural component that you could get, and all of that. Direct press is more just elegant, easy, very like light, elegant, but like not necessarily has no layers of like complexity and all of that. So people oftentimes talk about the macerated rosés are like the king and queen of rosés. Like the best rosés are made by maceration method. But obviously that all depends on who you ask as well. What region it comes from. Really, traditionally, if there was like a direct press region, then they would say direct press is the best. If it's a traditionally macerated region, they'd be like macerated is the best. But yes, to answer your question, yes, it is conceivably, conceptually possible to have direct press rosé that is darker than macerated. But it all depends on how long the maceration period. If they macerate it for like, a couple of hours, right, it can definitely get darker. But it is possible also where you press it so much that the juice is just basically leaking out nothing but the phenolics, and then the wine can get quite harsh as
well. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. That Provence rosé that you had in that box was delicious.
It is the only Provençal rosé that I actually like drinking.
It was so good.
Because it has acid. It's my always with the Provençal rosé. It's like, where's the acid? Like, give me more acid. So it's good. Well, you liked it.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I don't know if I missed the announcement, but what's next month's theme?
I am calling it a weirdo pool party. So it's like all the, it's like, remember all the pool parties in high school where like the weirdo artsy fartsy like unpopular kids showed up?
That's me and my wife.
Yeah, it's basically me.
Yeah.
So it's basically all the pool pounders that you want to drink by the pool, but like something's a little weird about them. It's either like where it comes from, or like variety that it's used, or like production method. Like something is off. You're like, some of this is a little outside the box. Like, what's going on here? So that kind of stuff.
We needed it this week in DC with the 100-degree weather we've had.
Yeah, I heard. How was that over there?
Awful.
I heard that
it's been awful this week.
Yeah, the pavements are buckling, is what I heard.
Well, also the tanks might have done it, but.
Oh yeah, fair. Yeah.
No, it's should not be this hot in June. It's crazy.
Yes. Sounds terrible. Sorry. I was expecting this weather in Korea to be miserable because last year it was so hot, like oppressively hot, but it's quite nice right now. It's like beautiful, breezy, sunny's out. So yeah, sorry.
I went on a trip with my dad from Colorado to Moab, and it was 97 degrees in Moab when we got there, which was unseasonably hot.
Yeah.
But 97 degrees in Moab versus 99 here.
Oh,
way different.
Yeah, I'll take the 97 in dry heat any day.
Yeah.
I'll take 100 in California over 90 in DC any day of the week.
100%.
Yeah.
Very different. We had some Colorado wines on that trip, by the way, that were pretty good.
Which one? Jackrabbit?
Oh, I don't remember the
Tequila?
Yeah, it was on the train.
So I'm still working on the other 47 box, which is all the US boxes except for California, Oregon, and Washington, right? And then one other thing that I'm working on is Colorado ones. There are 2 wineries that I'm eyeing, but they're not available in DC. So I'd have to direct import. So I'm trying to get send me some samples and do all of that. But yeah, there's a Jackrabbit and Aquila are the two that are like eyeing. But yeah, they make cool wines out there.
I'll go find what we tasted. We had a Riesling, the Colorado Riesling, that wasn't that good, but we had several others that were really good. Yeah.
I know. I was surprised. Last time I was in Denver, I went to a natural wine bar. They were out there, and then I was like, "Yeah, what's cool? Like, what's jiving with you right now?" And then their wine buyer poured me some stuff from Colorado. It's like, "Have you ever had a Colorado wines?" I'm like, "No." It's like, "Wow."
I didn't know they made wine in Colorado until
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was thoroughly impressed. I was like, "Holy shit, you make this in Colorado? These are quite fun, delicious."
I was like, I could see how this worked because they have like lots of temperature swings and interesting soil, and
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely still a burgeoning wine scene. It's not, it's not big in any way, but yeah, they're doing some cool stuff out there for sure.
Yeah. I'll see if I can dig up what we drank while we were there.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other comments?
You should go check out.
What's going on over there? Jesus. All right. Well, hearing none, well, you have 13 minutes. If you have anything pressing, you have 13 minutes. Oh, actually, I want to ask Shannon about her Mexico trip. You were just in Mexico.
Oh yeah. So I'd been down there before and went to kind of a couple of the popular, well-known wineries that have like the, Michelin star restaurants. The wine was whatever. It was very much like California wine. Reminded me a lot of Temecula.
Yeah.
However, this time I found 2 wineries that were making natural wine. The first one we went to, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but it was called Mina Penelope. And this woman she's the winemaker. Her husband manages the vineyard, planted everything. He actually owns property that his like great grandparents planted vines on. So everything's dry farmed, which is crazy. And she makes all natural wine. They had an orange wine out of Sauv Blanc that was delicious. They had a pet nat out of Bordeaux grapes, which I thought was really interesting. And then they had the typical like Tempranillo blend. They had a GSM. They had a regular Sauv Blanc. I think they had one other wine. And at one time she was like one of only 2 like known female winemakers down there. And I guess she inspired a bunch of other women to start making wine. And so her husband was the one that gave us the tour and everything. And he was like, oh, where else are you going next?
Yeah.
So I told him about the next winery and he was like, I'm so glad you're going there. He was like, that has been run. He was like, I really butt heads with the owner because he refused to pass it down to his daughter. And she just wanted to be a winemaker. And he's like, he finally gave in when he realized that my wife was like leading this expedition of like women winemakers. And now the daughter took it over. So that was like, oh, fun.
Was it in Guadalupe Valley?
Yeah. So it was really fun. I was really surprised by how good the wines were.
Yeah.
I've had some really good Mexican wine.
Yeah, they're getting better every year. I haven't tasted one in a couple of years, but 2 years ago when I was in Mexico City, I remember I tasted some, and it was like leaps and bounds better than what I tasted from a couple of years before that. I tasted Shannon, and then I was like, this is wild. Like, first of all, you grow a Shannon in Guadalupe Valley? Like, I didn't know that was possible. But yeah, it was like mineral driven. It was the acid was searing. I was like, wow, this is wild. But yeah, awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Also, that's another thing that I'm trying to put together was Mexico box. It's something I've been working for years, but yeah, more and more stuff was starting to become available in DC. So
that one's like it's hard to import it. Like you have to like drive it over the border. I think what Shannon would have to go on an extra go pick it up.
Maybe Shannon, you're gonna have to be our mule.
I will.
Because that was what they said. They like shipping into the United States was cost prohibitive,
Yeah.
The Mina Penelope, they actually do have a distributor here in California.
Oh,
so I have their information. The other one, I didn't actually get to meet the daughter. It was just the tasting room manager. But he said they do sell their wine to Vino Carta, a wine bar in San Diego. So I imagine they have an importer. So I'll look it up. I'll send you the 2 because I thought they were both really good.
Cool.
Or
yeah, love to.
The next evolution of Wine Prom could be Destination Wine Prom.
Oh my God, I would be down for that. Like that is like so much less ambitious than France, Woong.
I totally agree.
Like, everybody flies to San Diego. I mean, who's gonna, it's a totally possible
I mean,
thing.
the whole wine prom is
Shannon,
started
I'm
out.
gonna send you my my Mexico trip. I'd love to see which ones you went to.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, the whole idea behind the wine prom before we called it wine prom was this idea of wedding without the wedding. So maybe there's like a destination wedding kind of thing.
Yes.
So.
My husband and I said we're coming every year from now on. So.
I mean, why not, right?
Yeah.
It's an excellent idea, actually. One destination wine prom. All right. Well, I'm gonna go check out, pack, and all of that. But hope you guys survived the 100-degree weather.
It's supposed to storm tomorrow, so it'll get better.
Okay. Good.
We had a tornado down here today with our weather. It's been so hot.
In DC?
No, in Clearwater.
Oh, in Clearwater. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, you guys have fun. Sorry, I gotta ditch, but I gotta go. I'll see you guys next week from Korea again.
Hasta.
Bye, guys.
Bye.